Good evening, everyone. This is ANC 34G's regular meeting on the fourth Monday in May. We're all glad to have everyone here. I'm Randy Speck. I'm the chair of ANC 34G. I represent the single member district that is ANC 34G03. That's basically the area between Nebraska and Utah and Broad Branch. We'll begin as we always do with introductions of the commissioners. Connie, you want to begin?
Sure. Hi, I'm Connie Chang. I am the commissioner for single member district 05, which begins on the east side of Connecticut, starting at Legation, and it goes up north around the circle, western down Broad Branch Market, with a little slip between Nevada and Chevy Chase Parkway down to Jocelyn. Glad that you guys are here.
Michael?
I'm Michael Zeldin. I have 3G04, which is Lafayette at Broad Branch there through to Wisconsin, to Western. I've got COVID, so I'm not talking very coherently. I'll start this all over. I've got Lafayette Elementary School, and it's bounded by Broad Branch and Western and parts of Utah.
Okay, thanks for being here tonight, Michael.
Okay, to stay alert and not talk too much. Yeah.
Peter?
Hi, I'm Peter Gosselin. I'm the commissioner for District 6, which is the west side of Connecticut, back to 41st Street, from Western Avenue and the Chevy Chase Circle to Military, with the peninsula to the east of Connecticut to Chevy Chase Parkway between Kanawha and Legation.
And Chaz?
Sure, I'm Chas Cadwell. I'm in the single member district 3G07, which is south of Peters district. So from Military along Reno and Nebraska over to Nevada, I guess, and across on Jocelyn and Kanawha. And happy to be here for a regular meeting.
Okay, and John? You're muted, John.
Okay, sorry. I'm John Higgins. I am commissioner for single member district 02, which extends from Military to the south to roughly Aberfoyle to the north, from Oregon on the east to Utah on the west.
Okay, we have 6 commissioners here tonight. That's more than a quorum, and so we can conduct business. Just as a brief introduction on our procedures tonight, as usual, we're meeting virtually on Zoom, and it's a webinar. That means that all the commissioners will have audio and video throughout the meeting. And during the meeting, we will make some of the attendees who are here for particular events on the agenda, we'll make them panelists as well, so they will have audio and video too. And during the meeting, if you have comments that you want to make, please put them in the chat. And if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A. We are recording the meeting tonight. It will be posted on our website probably tomorrow or the next day. And we will also post the chat from the meeting as well, and the Q&A. We'll do our best to answer all the questions in the Q&A. If we don't get to them, we'll try to get them at a later point after the meeting. Okay, the first thing we have to do tonight is adopt our agenda. The draft agenda has been posted on our website and on various listservs. It's also been updated over the weekend. We added or deleted a couple of items as well. So the latest agenda is on our website. Any modifications or changes anyone wants to make to the agenda? John, I think you had an addition you wanted to make.
Yes, I'd like to make an addition to the agenda for the approval of an alley closing, which we got notice of last week and did not get onto our agenda. It's fairly routine. It's associated with the development of the sports field behind the Episcopal Center for Children. So I'd like to move that we put that item on our agenda and suggest that we consider it after we do the ABC approvals.
Okay, we can do that. Is that all right with everyone? Okay, all those in favor of adopting the agenda as modified by John's amendment? 6-0, okay. We should note that Lisa Gore is not here tonight. I'm sure she's occupied with other things tonight, as she frequently is. Okay. The first item on the agenda is commissioner announcements, and I have a few. The first is an update from an announcement that I made at a previous meeting, and that is about Temple Sinai's addition that they're going to make. It's about 9,500 square feet, a 2-story addition on the southwest side of the building, and they're expecting to start in mid-June, mid to late June. The planning for this project was interrupted during the pandemic, but it's now permitted and on track for completion over the course of about 16 to 17 months. Temple Sinai is inviting its neighbors to an information session on Thursday, June 9th from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. They will share their architectural plans and address ways that the temple will work with the community to minimize disruption and share information during the project. You can attend in person at Temple Sinai, 3100 Military Road, and no RSVP is required, and they are following COVID safety guidelines, so you should check on their website for those guidelines. You may also register to join on Zoom, and the link for the registration will also be available on their website. And if you have any questions, you may email construction@templesinai.org, and they'll try to answer your questions. The next announcement is also a reprise from a previous announcement I made at our last meeting, and that is the National Park Service is hosting, in partnership with DDOT, a virtual public meeting from 6:30 to 7:30 tomorrow night to present a proposed pedestrian and bicycle trail study along Military Road within Rock Creek Park. The project will provide a safe and efficient east-west pedestrian and bicycle connection through Rock Creek Park that will function for all users. The proposed connection will be from Oregon Avenue to 16th Street and will provide connections to the existing trail network within the park. And the link for joining the meeting is available on the National Park Service Rock Creek Park website. The next is with regard to the fiscal year 2023 budget. The commission, as it has in many instances in the past, took a pretty active role in testifying at council hearings on the budget for each of the individual agencies. And the council took their first vote on the budget on May 10th. There are 2 votes that have to be taken 2 weeks apart. The budget that the council passed on its first vote includes $500,000 for the Department of Aging and Community Living to fund feasibility study for a senior wellness center in wards 2 and 3. And this is something that the ANC specifically supported in testimony that we gave at the council. The capital budget also includes $7.6 million in fiscal year 2023 for the community center and library complex. And that's intended for the planning process for this new civic center, that the civic core that the commission has been advocating for some years. The budget also includes about $800,000 to bolster the Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commissions, which the commission has also supported. This is going to give them, I think, about 5 new staff people, which will be very helpful for ANCs across the city. The second vote for the committee on the whole will be at a meeting tomorrow that begins at noon. The last announcement I have is with regard to redistricting. The council's redistricting subcommittee met on May 20th, last Friday, and adopted a map and a proposed bill designating ANC and single member district boundaries across the district. The boundaries for our ANC are the same as had been recommended by the Ward 3 and Ward 4 task forces. The one difference is on the map, however, and on the map, it designates our ANC as ANC 4G rather than ANC 3G, which has always been in the past. But the proposed bill makes our ANC officially ANC 34G. The subcommittee staff confirmed this afternoon to me that the map is not an official document, and the text of the bill, as reported out of the subcommittee, officially designates ANC, our ANC, as ANC 34G. And this is the self-identification that we've had for a number of years, but it hasn't been official. So now it will actually be official. The council's committee of the whole will take the first vote on this proposed bill at its meeting tomorrow, beginning at noon, the same meeting that they're going to consider the budget on. Okay, anyone else have announcements that they'd like to make? Any other commissioners? Michael.
I posted something on the listserv today, which I received from WMATA, which says that because of construction, DDOT's plan to extend the M4 bus route to the Knollwood Community Center, Knollwood Retirement Community via Oregon Avenue is still delayed. So that's their plan is to extend the M4 into Knollwood, but it's still under construction delay. I asked them if they would bring back the E6, and they told me that their plan was to extend the M4. I tried to explain that there were different routes serving different populations, but whistling in the wind was the expression that came to mind.
Yeah. John?
Just as an addendum, I have two items. Just as an addendum to Michael, I walked down there today and the pavement is pretty much done at the bridge. And I sent a note to Jim and she got back to me today. They're sort of holding to end of May for finishing of construction, but she mentioned that they are close to completion and we are awaiting the delivery of the pedestrian safety railings, which have been on back order. They expect them to arrive in mid-June. Installation will take place as soon as they arrive. She has also been in touch with WMATA, and while she was hopeful for a late May opening of the bus, he will be adjusting the readjustment of the bus schedule for mid-June. So that's my latest information on that. The second announcement is that in our Northwest Post Office, we received a notice to Randy and to the commission from the Friendship Place organization, which assists the homeless in DC, has a very robust program for the homeless. They are having their annual gala on June 16th, 2022, from 6 to 9 p.m. It will be hosted by the Ambassador of France at the French Embassy, and tickets begin at $250, and you can make even some very significant sponsorship donations as well. So I will give that to Connie for posting on our website.
Thank you, John. Do you know whether that's going to be, I assume that's going to be an in-person meeting then?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
Reservoir Road.
Yes, Peter?
I'll just remind commissioners, because I just did 3 sets of minutes, please send me text on all these things and not just things yanked from the web, because you end up pasting it into a document and it screws up the whatever it is, the setup.
Formatting, the formatting.
Formatting, that's what I'm looking for. So please send me actual text. Thank you.
Connie?
I just wanted to jump on what Michael was saying. Because the E6 is not continuing, I think we've mentioned this before, but I just want to say this again, that the Department for Hire Vehicles, this is at DDOT, they're doing an internal study of a micro transit option for our area. And I don't know how broad this study is. I don't really know the details. I've asked and asked, but they said it should come out in the summer. And so we should hear whether or not, because we don't have the E6, whether or not we will get some micro transit, like a vehicle of some kind that you can call. They'll give us the details and we'll report that back out once we know.
Of course, none of that's going to solve the problem of not having the E6 because the E6 also serves Lafayette. And it takes
Correct.
a lot of people over to Friendship Heights to the metro. And there's just a lot of reasons why we need the E6 back.
Yeah, we asked about how do we get people who live in Barnaby Woods and so forth to come down to Connecticut, like to where we are in the corridor, and then how do they get to Friendship Heights and to Van Ness? And this is what I said over email. So I'm hoping that that study will encompass that need, and then we'll see what they say. But we will press them and see what they can do for us.
Okay, Connie, I need to make you a co-host, I think, so you'll be able to help me with getting people in or out. I'll make you co-host. Okay, Michael, do you have one other thing?
Yes, I'm sorry. One other thing I meant to say is that I and some others have been working with DGS and Department of Parks to get the water fountains at Lafayette working. The pipes are not connected, and they're fully aware of the problem, and they promise soon to have a team to connect those pipes and make the water fountain by the baseball field working and the upper playground working. And so they're aware of it. And Christopher Dwyer at the Parks and Recreation and Tommy Jones have been very responsive, and hopefully we'll get that done soon.
Peter?
Yeah, Michael's announcement just then reminded me, I sit on the board of the Friends of Chevy Chase Circle. The fountain is not going to be on at all this summer because finally, the National Park Service is starting work on rebuilding the basin, but if I understand it correctly, all the mechanism inside. So we look towards a glorious spring of 2023 with flowers, new trees, and a fountain that goes off, but it won't happen this year.
And hopefully a better way to get access by pedestrians to the circle.
When we get to Michael's thing about with Kristen Panero, I'm going to ask about that.
Okay. All right, that's all the announcements from commissioners. Connie, you want to make Emir I assume Emir's got announcements, he always does. So we'll recognize him first.
I promoted him.
Hi, hello. Are we just doing this just speaking, no video?
No, you should have video.
I don't have an option. I'm just have an option to unmute. This is fine.
Okay.
Because I actually don't have an update this week. That being said, I can take any questions or concerns anyone wants to bring up from the community or from the commission.
Anyone have any questions for Emir?
I have one question, Amir. That stormwater management email that you sent out, do you know when we might have a meeting with the DOEE people and the deputy mayor for operations and so forth?
Let me engage them again so that we can ensure that they saw that email and that they can we can set something up, because that does involve, I think, a concerted effort with the deputy mayor's office to make sure all the agencies are working.
I mean, I don't know if there's any money to do a study or to how to find data on homes that have this problem, the private property problem, but it is a problem, as we know.
The best way, if someone has been experiencing this, they should come forward. Of course, we have to make sure that people know that we're looking for this information right now. But that's definitely, I think, the easiest way to know if we're hearing this, if you have any neighbors that hear this concern. So for everyone else's context, we're talking about locations that are having trouble draining stormwater for whatever reason. Either the road or the alleyway is designed in a way where the water is pooling in a certain area, or there's not enough drainage ditches. And so when it rains, it's flooding people's backyards. We're trying to get a list of locations in the whole ward to get this on the Deputy Mayor of Operations and Infrastructure's desk, so they can work with all of the infrastructural agencies, so DC Water, DDOT, potentially DOEE, just to make sure that issue gets resolved, which might be a complicated, capital improvement project somewhere down the road, but we just want to make them aware of this and get that ball rolling. So that's what that is. And in response to you, Commissioner Chang, I also did stop by some of the locations you mentioned last week. So there were a few potholes at Chevy Chase Parkway next to Military Road. And so that's been sent to 311 to DDOT as well,
Thank you.
on top of the zebra striping, requested markings, and the pothole at Livingston.
Thank you.
The sidewalk on Legation.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Of course, if any other commissioners have things they saw like that, as always, my email and my text messages are open receiving days, and they can stop by Tuesday and Friday to check some of these issues out.
Okay, thank you, Amir.
Thank you. Oh, and can someone tell me how many people are on the call?
Yes, just one second. There are 17,
Okay, thank you.
18
Yeah,
attendees.
18. Mhm.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Ayura, who's from Council Member Janice Lewis George's office.
Yes,
Do you have
good evening,
announcements to make?
everyone. I do. It's nice to see everyone again. I'm stepping in for my colleague Jim. He got double booked tonight. So I just wanted to come and share announcements from Councilmember Lewis George for all of those Ward 4 neighbors. So what I'll do first is share a list of links in the chat. And I got a lot since we weren't able to join the meeting earlier this month. So bear with me. I'll try and go quick. The first thing I'll share is that the council member has been involved in the budget process for a couple of weeks now, and we have some early exciting DCPS wins for schools in Ward 4. So some of the highlights that I can present are that Roosevelt State Academy will be moving to Garnet Patterson on U Street, which is a renovated transit accessible location. So it'll serve the citywide population that goes to stay pretty well. And that means that it frees up a lot of space for Roosevelt High School, which will get to keep its entire building for itself. And that solves a severe overcrowding issue we've had for a while, 7 years ahead of when we were expecting to resolve it. So huge win. Trues Elementary will also have swing space at Sharp Health, which is a local renovated outdoor like swing space, which won't mean that the school won't be moving down to U Street, which is less safe for elementary and pre-K students. And this also helps ensure that the modernization of Whittier and LaSalle Bacchus over in 4B can stay on track. So the other thing is for folks who have children in Tacoma, the DC budget also includes funding for a new cafeteria for Coolidge High School, which means that Coolidge and Ivy will also no longer share a cafeteria and have their own separate spaces. So again, huge Ward 4 DCPS wins for us. So shout out to anyone who's helped on that end. The council member has also introduced new legislation called the Green New Deal for social housing and a lead-free DC. So the first piece of legislation, the Green New Deal for social housing, creates a plan for basically mixed income housing, where the government owns the land and the housing, and folks from different incomes are able to live in a sustainable, climate-friendly space. So because social housing is publicly owned, what happens is that surplus rent will go to fund the same folks living in the building, and be able to create that kind of mixed income housing. So this is a critical missing piece to confronting DC's affordable housing crisis, and it also aligns our housing policies with the urgent need to mitigate climate change. So we're very excited about the council member introducing that. And the second piece, the Lead-Free DC Act, what it does is basically fast forwards the process for lead pipe service replacement, such that it's completed 100% by 2030. Right now, DC Water's estimates is that we'll be at 20% by 2030. So it's a huge acceleration and catalyzer for the removal of lead pipes, which we know place a burden on our youth and our seniors alike.
You're right. I can just interrupt a second
Go
here.
ahead.
I'm on a task force of interagency representatives that was appointed by the council to look at DC Water's lead-free DC plan. And they are actually planning to remove all the lead service lines in the district by 2030. They're currently planning to do that. And I have talked with people on the council member staff about the legislation, and I think it's a great thing to have been introduced, but there are probably going to be some recommendations that will come from the task force specifically on the legislation that we should have. It provides a mandate requiring removal by 2030, and that's a very hopeful thing. There's some details on that we're going to want to work out, but I think this will move the process along more quickly. But it's going to be coordinated from the council member's office and the council with the task force that's been working on this issue since last November. So.
Absolutely. And thank you for adding that, Commissioner. And just to be clear, the council member has only introduced this legislation. So for folks who are interested in this kind of legislation, it hasn't gone up for hearing or anything like that yet. So we'll be updating folks so that they can also add their voices into what we need to see for both of these bills. So definitely useful to have someone who has that kind of intel on this as well, Commissioner. I'll move to a piece of legislation that has passed that the council member introduced last year, and it's for, or maybe earlier this year, now I can't remember, but it's to ease the removal of abandoned and dangerous vehicles in our neighborhoods. So the council unanimously passed this earlier this month. And what it does is it basically just accelerates the way that DPW, the responding agency, can actually remove vehicles where we've seen them sitting for a year or 2 years. Sometimes they harbor rats, rodents, and they create a public health and a public safety concern. So very excited for the council member to have, I think, what's her maybe second biggest full piece of legislation pass, not just emergency legislation. So again, I shared the link for that legislation and the newsletter that accompanies it in the chat if folks want to read up on it. I'll share as well Ward 4 Care Days. So for everyone's radar, the council member and our team will be in Chevy Chase this Thursday, May 26th, barring any weather changes. Right now we're looking at 30% rain. Hopefully it doesn't go up, but we'll see. And I'll be sure to share any updates if anything comes up. But for those who are staying tuned, May 26th from 4 to 7 p.m. We'll be meeting in Chevy Chase, and then I believe at Lafayette Pointer Rec Center. And then in 2 weeks from now, on June 9th, we'll be in Barnaby Woods and Hawthorne, also meeting at Lafayette Pointer. So look for that. Again, I'll loop in with commissioners on this. It's an initiative in which we go door to door, check in on neighbors, make sure that everyone has the resources they need. Agencies join us, neighbors join us, commissioners sometimes join us. So it's a really good show of community. I've shared the link for that in the chat as well. Other than that, 2 events coming up. So first, the council members touring every single rec center in Ward 4 ahead of the summer to make sure that everything's ready and set to go, especially checking in on the HVAC systems, making sure that air systems and filtering systems are all set, given the fact that the pandemic is still ongoing. So she visited Emory Heights, Fort Stevens, Shepherd Park, and Raymond last week, and no, sorry, she will be visiting them this week. She was in a couple of others last week, and will be in the community, I believe, on Thursday and Friday. So I believe that Lafayette Pointer is this Wednesday, and I can find the exact time and share it in the chat for you all. And the other thing is a summer safety strategic meeting. So the council members bringing together every public safety or public safety adjacent agency to speak on the specific actions that they're taking to help prevent crime and gun violence in our communities. And this will be hosted on June 8th at 5:30 p.m. at the McFarland Middle School. So I'll share that information in the chat as well. But information about that is forthcoming and comes out in our weekly newsletter, which the council member sends out on Fridays. And I've again shared the link for that in the chat. So sorry for all of the rambles and all of the things to share, but we have a lot going on. So I'm sharing my information in the chat, but if there's any commissioner questions or community questions, I'm happy to take them.
I'll remember to send all that text to me.
You got it.
Michael.
Right. So I wrote to your office today to Will, saying that as a commissioner whose territory, whose single member district includes the Pointer Recreation Center, I'd like to be able to join that tour that was denied. The answer was, you're not invited. It's just the commissioner and DPS and GSA. And so I just want to say that I think is an incredibly unfortunate decision, seeing as how, one, it's in my single member district. I'm sure other commissioners who have, like Allison Brooks, who's got Emory, we get the day-to-day calls on these things. And what are we supposed to say? The councilwoman for our area denied us access to the meeting. So I've asked Will to think about that. I've written a note to Janice, but the thinking beyond that is complex, I expect. But
Understood. Can I clarify? So you're talking about the
tour of
the
the
rec centers. Okay. Sorry. I wasn't sure if you meant that or the care day, which is also happening at Lafayette Pointer.
No, the rec.
Got it. Let me check in with Will. What I can say, at least off the top of my head, is that sometimes agencies prefer that no one else be involved. I can't speak to why that is, but let me check in. I'm not trying to pass the blame. It is possible that it was us. I don't know.
Right,
I
well,
wasn't looped into that, but
his
I have
answer,
been.
his answer was, we promised it would just be us. Unfortunately, he says, we agreed to keep the tours closed and just our office and DPR and DGS. We're not inviting commissioners on any of these tours. And I think that that's inappropriate. And I've expressed.
Understood. Absolutely. Understood.
I
I
agree with
can loop in. Yeah, I appreciate that feedback.
Okay, any other questions from commissioners for Aurora? Thank you very much for coming tonight, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, the next item on the agenda is, let's see if we have any other community announcements. Anyone else in the audience, any attendees want to make an announcement? If so, raise your hand. Don't see any hands. Okay, so we'll begin now going through a series of.
Robert, wait a second, Randy.
Robert
I see
Gordon?
Robert Gordon raised his hand.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna I'll elevate him.
Okay. All right, sure.
Thank you very much. I wanted to announce that Chevy Chase DC Day is planned for September the 17th. That's a Saturday. And we're expecting to make it bigger and better than ever. Last year, we had a Zydeco band. We're inviting them back. They had a great response. We'll have face painting and petting zoo and many other items that will be very attractive to families. Commissioner Chang is helping us get the permits for the space. It's not as simple a process as it seems or it should be, but we're working on that. So thank you for allowing me to make this announcement.
Sure. Thank you, Robert. September seems like a long way off right now. I'm sure it'll get here sooner than we think.
Yeah, in the planning stages, you really have to get way ahead of things.
Well, and I compliment you again on the Chevy Chase DC Day last year. It was really stupendous. So I'm sure it will be just as good this year.
Thank you.
All right. I think that now is everyone. Connie, I think you've been making people, you're giving them permission to speak, but not video. So you need to update them to make them panelists. So
Got it.
I don't know if we've got anybody who's going to be here from the applicants for renewal of their liquor licenses. I don't think anyone's going to be here. So we don't have to worry about that now. But Connie, you want to start with the one
Sure.
application that's in your single member district, and then we'll hear from Peter about several in his SMD.
Okay. So Blue 44 at 5507 Connecticut Avenue has applied for a renewal of their liquor license. It's a Class C restaurant on premises. I guess it's a whole class of organizations that apply for this. So for them, their restaurant, and it's to imbibe alcohol at their restaurant. And this is a license they've had for 11 years. There's no change. It's just a renewal. That is what I've been told. And I've talked to Christopher Nardelli, who's the owner. That's it. Does anyone have any questions?
John?
Excuse me, Rainey, what is the procedure? I would recommend that we move for each one of these separately, since they are separate properties under separate ownership, rather than en masse.
That's fine. Let me just report that there are some ANCs that have adopted a procedure for liquor license renewals that they don't even deal with them in their meetings unless there is some objection from someone. They are, as long as there's no change in the application and there's no objection, they don't deal with them at all. So it's really not necessary for us to do that. For in the future, we might think about that as one possibility, but we can do these pretty quickly. And so I don't think there's really any need to just cut off any discussion at all. So, but you're right, John, we should vote on them separately. So
I'd like to move. Could I
Yes.
move for the commission to support the renewal of Blue 44's liquor license? Do I have a second?
Second,
All those in favor? 6-0. Okay.
Thank you.
Peter, you want to begin with the list that you have?
Yeah, I've spoken to all of these are renewals. All of these are routine renewals. I've spoken to the owners in every case today. And I asked the two critical questions, any changes in hours or conditions and any complaints. And if there are complaints, what did you do about them? Robert Gordon, who's here, I emailed Aaron, but didn't get him, but Robert answered for Little Beast. Mika for Bread and Chocolate, and Pete, who's good for Parthenon and the Chevy Chase Lounge. All of them say that they're seeking no changes and there have been no complaints. So I would move that per John, we'll start with Parthenon and Chevy Chase Lounge. I move that we support the renewal of that license.
Is there a second? All those in favor? 6-0.
Bread and Chocolate. Actually, I'm surprised they have a license. I've never had alcohol there, but in any case, I move that we support the renewal of their Abra license. Second.
second,
All those in favor? 6-0.
And finally, Little Beast, ditto. I move that we approve the renewal of their license.
Second.
second.
All those in favor? 6-0. Okay. Thank you, Connie and Peter.
Okay.
All right, we were going to then, I think, John, just take up briefly the issue of the alley closure. I think this will just take a couple of minutes.
Yes, we received a notice from BCRA, the Office of Surveyor, for a application to close a public alley adjacent to the Episcopal Center for Children and also adjacent to a residence at 5931 Utah Avenue. The parties involved are the residents, the Episcopal Center, and also Murray School, because of it brushes up against the planned conversion of the field there to the sports field. The applicant, Meredith Rathbone, is on the call tonight. Maybe Meredith, if you could just briefly, a couple of sentences or two, tell us what this is about, and then we can proceed with the vote.
I'll make panel.
I just beat you to it because I needed
Okay.
to practice. Sorry, Randy.
Okay.
I'll get it right at some point. I think Meredith, you can turn your video
Can you
on.
hear me okay?
Yes,
We
we
can hear
can.
you, and I believe you can turn your video on if you would like.
Okay, great. All right.
Okay, I'll do it.
There we go.
Your
Can you hear me okay?
camera is, yeah, you're horizontal, which is interesting. That's the first
Great,
time.
okay.
Okay, now,
There we
okay, good, good.
Okay, so yes, so very briefly, we purchased our property just over a year ago, and when we were preparing to purchase it, we realized that part of the property, which looks like our property and has in fact been used as part of our property for, you know, probably at least 50 years based on what we can tell from the size of the trees and the photos that we can find going back. Was actually is a public alley. So we, prior to purchasing the property, engaged an attorney to help us file an application to close the alley. The alley basically runs along the entire length of our house, from the street in the very front, all the way along the side between our house and the Episcopal Center to the you know, alley in the back that the cars drive in. And so it's a long, thin strip, about 4 to 5 feet wide, going all the way back. It comes at one point to within 1.5 feet of our house. So our physical house, our own property, only goes out 1.5 feet from that at one point, and at other points, it's not much further. So, you know, even to walk around one side of the house, we have to have access to that space. There's a fence, an existing fence, both along the back and the front yards on the other side of the alley. So in other words, the alley is basically part of our yard. The fence is on the other side and has been for a very long time. So this is, from our perspective, a formality just to recognize that space that has been part of our property as part of our property. In addition, there's a little space in the back that the entire length of the street or of the alley, everybody's properties extends out to a certain point within, I think it's about 12 feet from the center of the alley or something like that. Ours, we're the last house in the alley, and ours kind of extends to that same point at the beginning, and then it kind of cuts in closer to our house. It cuts in about 10 feet, 12 feet closer to our house. So there's a little gap basically from our backyard that's cut off, and it's on the alley side, but it's not used for anything. It just kind of collects mud. The alley itself, you know, where cars actually would pass, don't use that space. Nobody uses that space. So it's just kind of bamboo and mud. Anyway, so that is also part of our alley closing application to enable us to use that space as well. The next door neighbors, the Episcopal Center for Children, have agreed with this, and they've, in the materials, I don't know exactly what materials you received, but in the materials that we submitted as part of our application, they signed a letter saying they support this. The Murray School, actually, we've learned, because they simply would be leasing the property, don't actually have a formal role here. So, but they've indicated to us that they're not opposed to it either.
Okay, I just have one question. And any other neighbors involved in this, or is it just your?
No,
your
there are
residents?
no other neighbors that would be affected by this.
Okay, and this will revert to your property. It will be within your property lines.
That's right. Yeah, there are no services or anything like that along that space either.
Okay, Randy and I are somewhat familiar with this. I think we would jointly recommend that we, as a commission, approve this, and I can read a formal motion for that effect. I move.
Oh,
to
wait a
approve-
second. Wait,
Oh, sorry, Connie.
John, there is a question
Oh.
in the that's directed to us. I think perhaps you should read it, and
It's in the chat.
it's in the
In the
chat.
chat.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Again, if people put their questions in the Q&A, that would help us sort them out easier and be able to answer them easier.
Yeah, to mark it as answered,
easily.
right? To see it.
Right.
That's true. John,
John,
would
do
you
you
like to
see
read
it?
it out?
This has to do with Lafayette Preschool.
Yes.
Yes.
Would there be need? No, this would not interfere with any kind of pedestrian or auto access to the school.
That's correct. I can confirm that's correct.
I don't think there would be any impact at all.
Plus Lafayette preschool is not moving there.
Right. Okay, John, you want to make a motion then?
Can I
Okay,
just say one, can I just say one thing?
Sure, Michael.
Meredith, it would have been lovely to see. I'm not familiar with it. I'm going to rely on Randy and John, but I can't visualize it. There's no, there's no photos or drawings or anything that allow me to see it. So I'll rely on their advice, but
Yeah, understood. I found out about this about 3 hours ago. I think the city provided, the surveying department provided this to the ANC. It sounds from what John said maybe a couple days ago. So we're happy to share anything with you that you'd like.
we have the full packet for the application, Michael.
okay.
And it does have a drawing.
Okay, so if we just put it in our, post it or whatever it is so that people have access to it.
Yeah, and the only other thing I'd add is if you were to walk by and see, you would, it's hard to tell because it looks like it's part
You
of our
can't
property.
tell.
You can't tell if you were to look at our property where the chain link fence runs along that property line. Just imagine a 4 foot, if it were to come in 4 feet closer to our house. That's the alley piece. And as Meredith mentioned, there are no services. And I look back at some of the GIS records in DC as we're trying to research this, as we found it. And we could tell it's, 60, 70 years ago is when.
Mind you, I'm not objecting. I'm just saying, so we have it in the record, John, as long as we
Yeah,
have
we've
pictures.
got that. So we'll have that. No problem.
I think it's protective of them. It's protective of the applicants.
As Meredith mentioned too, there's a sign off from Array as well as ECC. So it's all, everybody has agreed to it, all of the affected people.
As I said, I'm not objecting. I just want them to
Yeah.
be protected.
Right.
That everything they say is that they say is true is represented in the record, so that no one challenges them down the line in any way.
I'm happy, John, if you send it to us, I could certainly upload it to the meeting information page as well as our Murray ECC dedicated page, because this is
Okay, I'll send it to you.
part of it. We'll have it all. Okay.
Okay, but I will move anyway. A motion to approve the closing of a public alley in Square 2319 adjacent to the Episcopal Center for Children and a residence at 5931 Utah Avenue per file number SO22-02364 of the Office of the Surveyor. I ask for the yeas and the nays.
Is there a second? All those in
Second.
favor? 6-0. Okay. Thank you, Meredith.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. The next item on the agenda is DCRA. And Connie, do you want to handle this?
Sure, I'm
You can-
going to elevate Isaac. I'm going to do this again and promote him to panelist.
Okay.
And I'm not going to say too much. Isaac will introduce himself and he will share with us a presentation if he has it. Isaac, would you like to turn on your video so we can see you?
Sure.
Hey,
Hey,
so
hi
good to see
everybody.
you.
Good to see
Hello.
you guys.
Thank you for all your help all these months. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Can you guys hear me well?
Yes.
Mhm.
Oh, perfect, perfect. So most of you guys know who I am. If you don't, my name is Isaac Boateng. I am the new account manager for Ward 3. I know that I have communicated with most of you guys via email regarding issues surrounding permits and constructions going on and zoning issues. So work closely with a lot of familiar faces like Commissioner Speck and Commissioner Chang and Commissioner Goslin. So it's great to see you guys. But I just want to talk about DCRA as a whole real quick so that we can all understand what we do and answer questions at the end. DCRA, our mission is basically to, give me 1 second, I'm so sorry. Our mission is basically to, as the Department of Consumer and Retail Affairs, protect the health and safety and economic interest and quality of life of residents, businesses, and visitors in the District of Columbia by ensuring code compliance and regulating businesses. DCRA is responsible for regulating construction and business activity in the District of Columbia. The agency issues construction permits after reviews of construction, documents to ensure compliance with building codes and zoning regulations. Construction activity, buildings, and rental housing establishments are inspected, and housing code violations are abated if necessary. To protect consumers, DCRA issues businesses and professional licenses, registers corporations, inspects weighing and measuring devices used to monitor and profit, and issues special events permits. And please stop me if you have any questions, all right? So we just had our digital transformation and success recently. The result from our digital transformation was our customer satisfaction scores are now trending at 86% for the year. Created 265 jobs for on-demand inspectors who performed over 5,204 inspections. We had shorter turnaround time for safety inspections, faster permitting and licensing. This past year alone, we exceeded all 19 annual key performance indicators. Back in fiscal year 2021, DCRA registered about 22,000 corporations, licensed 39,000 businesses, and 45,000 professional licenses. We completed 67,000 building inspections, issued 54,000 permits, monthly fielded more than 19,000 emails, 16,000 phone calls, and 1,000 live chats, and we employed 505 employees. What's our common service level agreements? So a lot of folks come to us and we, want to get things done faster and want to get things done answered. So we have a 3-day SLA. So our common service level agreement is 3 days SLA. Customer inquiries come and responded within 3 business days. Our permit application pre-screening completed within 2 business days. Plan reviews completed within 30 business days, first round reviews. Subsequent plan reviews completed within 15 business days. Life safety property maintenance inspection completed within 1 calendar day. Non-life safety property maintenance inspection completed within 15 businesses. Vacant building initial inspections completed within 30 business days. Online business license applications and renewals completed within 1 business day. Consumer protection cases closed within 30 days. Online corporate registrations processed within 1 business day for expedited services or 3 business days if not expedited. Key area programs that I know we all have questions with, that comes with DCRA. Of course, we have the vacant property, vacant building administration. We have housing code and property maintenance. We have illegal construction. We have permitting and zone administration. We have consumer protection and enforcement, business and professional licensing, small businesses resource center, and then we have special events and vending departments. Overview of our systems and platforms. And I really want folks to understand that DCRA is digital online, and it's so easy that you can access records or even input your own inspections, and you can even go on a dashboard and be able to help you find outstanding issues that are going on from this landlord or any other issues. We have Scout. That's one of the best I think best resource there that we provide for our residents to be able to see what permits are being are taken out and what's going on with these these inspections. So kind of an overview of our system and platforms. So we have agency dashboard, Tertius, the new system that we have. We have Dispatch. Dispatch is like Uber, where you can just go online and get an inspection done, and where you can see where you can track where the inspector is. Such a cool app to use. E-records, where you can go and get records from plan review to anything you're looking for. Scout is more of a system that we always ask our constituents to go online and to look for the updates on the latest permits or the latest business license, or either, hey, I have a restaurant next door, but I can't seem to find their I don't know if they're licensed or not, so Scout is a place where you can use that. Permit Wizard is another tool that we always, if you don't know what you're doing, if you think that, hey, you're doing a interior design or, renovation in your house, Permit Wizard will help you with what you're looking for your project. Contract and rating system, and I want to really key on contract and rating system. Folks who get architects or expediters, use that contract and rating system to look and see, okay, who is rated 5-star, who's been rated the best. And that's essential for folks to look at when getting a contractor. We have a business center for anybody who wants to start their own business and want to ask questions about, how to register for business and all those things. We have those platforms online. We have a user guide resource for everything I just said. So for our new system, Test Yours, we have a user guide for that. We have a user guide for our small business resource center. We have a user guide for e-records, electronic records that folks can use, and of course utilize our homepage where you can put in the search box and try to find what you're looking for. Current topics I want to share with y'all. As you all know that the new leaf blower regulations took effect on January 1st, which prohibits the use of gasoline-powered leaf blowers in the District of Columbia. So DCRA has notified all landscapers who do business in the district to plan ahead and prepare for equipment changes that comply with the new law. So, companies that continue to use gasoline-powered leaf blowers, after this date, will be subject to fines of up to $500 for each offenses issued by DCRA. Short-term rental program launch. Short-term rental Regulation Act of 2018 took effect on Friday, December 3rd, 2021. The short-term rental program began accepting applications on Monday, January 10th, 2022. Fun fact that I want to share, the grace period for owners to become licensed has been extended to June 9th, 2022. So if you're ever looking to, get into the short-term rental program, you have now until June 9th to submit your application to be licensed. And anything, if you guys have not, I urge you guys and encourage you guys to subscribe to our newsletter, where you find the latest updates of DCRA. I'd say also you visit DCRA, our homepage, for any updates that's going on. And of course, follow us on social media. We on, at DCRA for Twitter. We have Facebook and we have LinkedIn to address any of your concerns. I know most people utilize Twitter a lot to ask, to kind of communicate with us and to chat with us on any issues that you have regarding what's going on. I have done this. I'm new to this role. So I have been doing a lot of office hours and working with a lot of the business divisions and in the district so far, so far. So I love working for 3 folks, and it's an honor to be here today. So definitely would like to take any questions or any concerns that folks may have. But I want to just leave one thing. The one thing that I want to leave is that we always want to prioritize things that folks come, and if we have not answered any question within 3 business days, please elevate that to me so that we can address it. But we definitely want to make sure that folks are using our online basis to schedule inspection. And if you have an issue with that, let us know so that we can address it. All right. So thank you for having me again, and I'm open to questions.
Michael?
So, hey, Isaac, I get a lot of calls saying this gardening company is using gas-powered blowers and stuff that's not allowed any longer. What do I do about it? And, it's not like I can call you and say they're there, go give them a ticket. But I just want to know from my constituents, I get a lot of calls saying these electric rules are being honored in the breach, and by a lot of big companies too. So I don't know who's the ticketing agency, whether it's MPD that does that, but if they do, and is in effect, then you need to coordinate with MPD to be more aggressive in shutting down these gas machines.
That's a great question, Commissioner. So I want to just say this though. So it's us that handle this. So if you see that company and you're like, hey, that company is doing, using gas leak blower, take the name of that company, report it to our consumer protection unit. We will look into it. They are the ones that actually investigate it. MPD would not have a handle on this. It's DCRA that will be able to go out and investigate the issue. So if anyone actually on this call sees folks who are using gas leak blower, to do work, please report it to us and we will handle it. We would send an investigator out there to investigate such those claims.
Yeah, so let me just tell you, I did this. Firstly, I would have advised citizens to be approaching people to tell them that they're violating the law. It's not necessarily safe. I don't know exactly how a photograph of a truck that says XYZ landscaping is doing it. When I was there to do it, when someone called me, just so you know, the landscaping company had their gas blowers, which they were using, but they also had these electric ones sitting in the yard. And they said, oh, no, we're using electric ones. You're mistaken. And then I didn't want to get into an argument with them, but they were being, tricky that they had both, but because the batteries of these electric ones only last about an hour, they don't like using them. It's difficult for them. They got to keep recharging them and stuff. So anyway, I think you've got a huge enforcement problem on your hand that I'm not sure that you've got your arms around. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners for Isaac? Okay, Isaac, I assume you're going to be making a transition to the Department of Buildings in the fall.
So we don't know yet, actually, to see where we're gonna go, but definitely looking. I don't know, to be honest, to see where I'm gonna go in terms of Department of Buildings or Department of Licensing. But we're looking forward to August or July, July or August.
Yep. A lot of changes coming.
A lot.
I do have one question for Isaac. So Isaac, I have a vacant property problem in my district, and construction had commenced and then it stopped since the fall. And I contacted DCRA. They sent an inspector. They said that it was definitely vacant and allowed the owners to respond basically. And they did. They responded by applying for or submitting a construction permit, which allows them, I think it's eight months of time or something. So my question to you is, how does DCA inspect it? Like, I've heard so many times that people don't want to pay the higher tax rate, right, for a vacant building. And so they apply for these construction permits, but then they don't do the work. So does DCRA have like a certain period, like intervals of time that they go check to see if the work has been done? The neighbor next door to this building, it's a single family home, the tarp is tattered, the basement is exposed. I mean, it's a problem, and they are very close. It's two old buildings, and it's an eyesore. So I wanted to ask you, what is the procedure for that? I've been in contact, but I'm just curious.
So I remember this case actually, and did someone from Vacant Property respond back to you or no?
They did. They went and inspected it in April, and then they gave the owners 30 days to respond, and then they responded by showing or applying for a construction permit. They got the permit. They were issued immediately, same day. They applied, same day they were issued it. And I spoke to another person at DCRA who said, would you like another inspection? I said, yes, please, because I want to know if they're really going to do the work. And I don't know why they stopped work. I don't know if it's because their plans were out of compliance or something. I have no idea why the work stopped, but it has stopped for many, many months. And now it's supposed to commence, but it doesn't seem like anything has been done in the last 3 weeks. Nothing has started. So I just want to know if DCRA like has like, you have like all these goals, you got to call back in 3 days and so forth. Do you have like intervals where you just check during
So-
that 8 month of time?
I definitely want to be able to talk to you about this, and I want you to email me, Commissioner, so that way I can follow up on
Okay.
with the
Okay.
manager. What I would say is most of the times we work with OTR, so sometimes it might be OTR that might be lacking. Might be taking a while for the system to kick in. So, but sometimes it might take that time
Yeah.
because. But I want to. That's what I would say.
Yeah,
If
in this
it's,
case, it's not OTR. They're CC'd, so they're aware. They're not. It's not in their. It's not on their desk, basically.
Okay.
But we could take this offline. We could
Yeah,
take this offline. But I did
definitely.
want to just say that this is an issue, and I don't want this. I don't want 8 months to go by, and
Right.
then they claim that it's really not vacant. We have this construction permit. Then they apply for a permit again. I mean, I think this is just nonsense, right?
Right. Okay.
Right. Thank
Oh,
you.
no, you're welcome, ma'am.
Okay, Randy, that's my last question. I don't
Okay.
have any
All right.
others, and I don't think anyone has raised their hand. So thank you so much, Isaac,
Okay.
for spending
Thanks,
time with
guys.
us. Really appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
You.
And I think both Commissioner Speck and Commissioner Tang and Commissioner Gosselin have my contact information. And of course, you can find me online at dcra.dc.gov. So looking forward to meeting you all in person one day.
Just
Thank you
let
so
me know,
much.
Isaac, what people should do about reporting, because I think the system that you outlined is not going to work too well.
Well, can you? So I invite you to send me an email about it too, Commissioner, so that way that I can have our manager from enforcement respond to those to your questions, sir.
Okay.
All right. Thank you,
Okay.
guys. Have a
Thank
good
you.
one. Hi. Bye.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is discussion with the Lafayette Elementary School Local School Advisory Team, the LSAT. And Michael, you want to introduce this, and who should we make a panelist on this? Michael, you're muted. Can't hear you.
Well, Kirsten,
Yeah, I'll elevate them.
for one, and Kirsten will tell us whether there is anybody else who is going to be a speaker in addition to her.
Yeah, she said, Andrea. Okay, I see. Okay, and then who's the next one? Sorry. Okay, I think I have, and then Kirsten. Okay, I think I have them all now.
Okay. I don't see Kirsten.
She's the last one I just promoted to
Here she-
panelist, so she should be coming up soon.
Hi, guys. So this is a request by us for you guys to give us an update on the LSAT and how things are going and whether there are issues. We've got for ourselves no particular agenda. We don't have any gripes of any sort that we want to air with anybody. We just like to be kept informed of what's going on as best we can, and that's what we hope to do on a regular basis, not necessarily quarterly or anything, but maybe twice a year, where you can give us at the end of each sort of fall and spring semester how things are, because our hope here is, as we talked about previously, to be a good partner, and also to be able to be helpful if there are issues that are within our purview to help, but also to be kept informed as well as commissioners overseeing this ANC. So with that, Kirsten,
Sure.
you're in charge.
Great. Well, we can't make up all of your time, but we will endeavor to be efficient on your calendar and agenda here. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Kirsten Keefe. I have a fourth grader at Lafayette. This is my 11th year as a Lafayette parent. And then I'll let Andrea and Martin each introduce themselves, and then we'll start with some opening comments, just describing an update as you described, Michael.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Andrea Pearl. I'm a teacher at Lafayette. I'm one of the co-chairs of the LSAT. And I teach art and music to pre-K, kindergarten, and part of first grade students. This is my 15th year teaching at Lafayette and my 20th year teaching for DCPS.
Well, thank you.
Welcome.
Hi, excuse me. Hi, I'm Martin Levine. I'm the community representative on the LSAT. I'm a DC native and a graduate of the DC's public schools and a 40-year, 2-block-away neighbor of Lafayette. I'm delighted to be so, with more Lafayette kids on the block than I could begin to name. And I'm currently serving as the community representative. And in that role, I serve as a conduit for questions, comments, concern raised by any member of the ANC or anyone in the community. So during this presentation, I'll post my contact information on the chat, and I'll share it with Commissioner Zeldin as well. And anyone who would like to follow up in addition to questions at this meeting, please do get in touch with me, and I'll pass them along to the other members of the LSAT and to the leadership of the school. Happy to be here.
Great, thanks. We'll just give a couple minute overview for all of you commissioners and anyone who is also in attendance of what the LSAT actually is. And then some comments about our school budget process and where we've landed on that school budget, I think is probably the primary topic at this point in the year, as well as the composition of next year's LSAT. And then a couple comments on some successes and wins that we've had as a school community over the year. So just as a refresher, the local school advisory team is, we work with the principal on developing and monitoring and refining the comprehensive school plan, which what is the aim of Lafayette as a community and as a goal. And that includes supporting discussions around the budget and advising the principal on school priorities. So the composition of Lafayette's LSAT, the way it is reflected Lafayette compared to our peers, is macro-sized because our school is macro-sized in the District of Columbia. So we have 5 elected parents. 2 of the HSA co-chairs are also then representatives on the LSAT, as hearing many voices from our parent and caregiver community. We have 5 elected teachers, an instructional staff, and then the WTU representative or equivalent make up the 14 members of our LSAT. And then when that LSAT is seated, then nominations and votes are taken, and the LSAT decides by consensus on who will be the community rep for the following year. So, and the cycle runs July 1st through June 30th. So we are waning in our time here together. The Lafayette parents have held their elections, and there will be 3 incumbent and then 2 new parent representatives on the LSAT, as well as the new HSA co-chairs. Just want to point out that at LafayetteHSA.org, I'll put it in the chat as we speak, are available all the LSAT meeting minutes and notes, so you can go back and look at the discussions and the decisions. Just a few comments about this budget season. So we're at the tail end. The budget has been decided and approved, and just want to speak a little bit about the budget process, which was a change instituted by DCPS, both in process and priorities this year, which change in process didn't have as much of an impact on Lafayette as it did on other schools because of how large we were and how our funding was previously allocated. The layers of funding, well, first of all, the 3 priorities were equity, transparency, and sustainability. We can agree, great goals for DCPS to be focusing on, and in particular, the equity piece and focusing on student funding as opposed to student to teacher ratio funding was a change for some schools to adjust to. Thinking about how the funding pyramid happens, the bulk of the funding is based on enrollment, the per pupil funding. And then the next layer above that is any targeted support for English language learners, at-risk students, special ed, that's that second tier of funding. And then at the top is sort of how to prevent against huge swings from one year to the next, and it's stability funding to allow for some predictability year on year for schools. Thinking about the Lafayette funding, we had a projected enrollment decrease by about 60 students. So I think Andrea might have the most up-to-date numbers.
Our projected numbers for next year is 884 students.
So it's down about 60 students. And so, you know, with more than $10,000 per pupil funding per student, that was a pretty big chunk, as well as the elementary and secondary emergency relief funds, the ESSER funds during the pandemic that were congressional funds for 2020 and 2021 are no longer there. So we did have a reduction in our budget of more than $500,000. So some decisions and some discussions that we had at the LSAT about how to best minimize the impact of that decrease were there were some organic ways where in the older grades, we were able to approve the reduction of classroom sizes or cohorts down one cohort in order to help with that count, both in the 4th and 5th grade for next year. And then the third piece that was a long debate and a difficult one was the elimination of the Spanish education as electives headcount. It was a hard one because as a community, we really support cultural exposure and the concept of, you know, early language learning and learning language acquisition at a young age. We did do a survey through the Lafayette community. We had more than 114 community responses, as well as discussions, you know, informally amongst our members. The prioritization of English language learners and at-risk students and special ed funds was a priority that the community expressed, with less of a priority on the Spanish language learning for this year. I think there's been some collective angst about that, rightly so, because we want to continue to be able to support that cultural literacy. And we, as an LSAT, are committed to working with the HSA on how we can supplement that, maybe not with funding, but perhaps with programming for the coming year. I think thinking about what we also had as successes, if you look at what it meant to come back to school this year and deal with the variety of on again, off again COVID protocols and quarantining and isolation and notification, our overall community spread was kept very low. Our kids were in class and together and eating lunch on the on the great hills of Lafayette, and able to reinstitute many of our fun programs, including Arts Night, which is keeping all of our teachers busy this spring. So as a community, we're really grateful for the administration and teachers for helping manage through those COVID protocols. As an LSAT, we did provide some feedback to DCPS about some of the COVID testing protocols that were proving to be very difficult, especially for our pre-K kids. To be able to spit in those little tubes was really a challenge. So we provided some comments on that throughout the year, and we're happy to be able to provide that input. Looking forward, again, we will have a crossover meeting with our new members in June, and look forward to the next school year. So I'll leave it open to additional comments for my co-chair Andrea and Marty, and then maybe take some questions from all of you.
I just wanted to clarify a little bit about the population. Our current enrollment is 862 students. So though we're enrolled 880, we're projected for 884 for next year, it's actually not tremendous amount of difference. And most schools in the district didn't make their projections this year because of COVID and the switch back to in-person learning. So we're in pretty good shape, I think. And we have about 3/4 of students enrolled for next year already. So if you know any Lafayette families or any families who are new to the area who need to register, please encourage them to register their students as soon as possible. Because the sooner we, make clear that we will be making our projections, the more solid our budget will remain. I think that's, I don't know, I think that's it, maybe. Anybody have any questions?
Oh, I thought Marty was going to say something.
Oh, go ahead, Marty.
No, just opening it up for questions from anyone. Very happy to be here. And Commissioner Zeldin, thanks for creating the opportunity.
I put 2 websites in the chat. So before the question, I'll just mention, so the LafayetteHSA.org, the Home and School Association, contains both the calendar for Lafayette and the communications, as well as the LSAT page where you can get all of the meeting minutes and requested video recordings. And then DCPSbudget.com is a super useful tool that has the back end work of the Power BI from Microsoft that can compare different budgets from elementary schools year on year and against each other. So if you have further information about the data that's driving a lot of this, the Power BI tool there that's publicly available is a great change and a really good step by DCPS on the transparency piece. Commissioner Higgins?
Yes, what is the 884 for 2023? What is the maximum capacity at the school?
I knew that at some point, and I'm gonna quickly search my email for that, but we are at or above quoted capacity when they redid the school.
Yes, I think we are at capacity with that number.
Okay, second question is, as you know, we've been working, well, we've been introduced to the population issue on 2 very significant fronts. One, when we first started out as commissioners, we got more than knee deep into the preschool issue. And now we are facing a very significant element of the small area plan, which contemplates more residential population, particularly with the proposal for affordable housing. If that results in 50 more kids, 75 more kids, 100 more kids, we don't know. But we're trying to find out how this affordable housing can go in synchronization with Lafayette, making sure there's going to be room for those kids if they come. So can you give us any idea as to how you are contemplating this? I mean, I walk by the school and I go to the Broadbench Market and I'm looking down the alley from the Northampton entrance behind the gym, trying to figure out if you guys can squeeze 2 or 3 stories there. Maybe you could pinch some room on the basketball court. I'm trying to figure out where is this school going to go? So do you have any ideas on how you're going to be addressing perhaps some significant population increases?
Well, we certainly, welcome affordable housing as, a matter of access and equity. And there will always be room. We will always find room for the kids who need to be there. We've been as large as 935 students. And we've used all accessible spaces, and we've created new classrooms, and we've closed in some open spaces that were created with the new construction. So we are, we work hard to find spaces. As a specials teacher, I go into their classrooms to teach, so that there's enough classrooms for general, the general population, in other classes. So, we make it work.
I think more broadly, you're correct that the way the school in its renovation was designed to have more open and shared spaces and spaces that were dedicated for specials have been absorbed by classroom space by necessity because of the higher enrollment. And again, I think the peak, like we were saying, is 940, will be at 884 next year. So there is some swing there to get back up to the peak. But what happens after that, I think, is a very good question, both for DGS. I think they've built out as much of the space in the basement as they can, as you've mentioned. And then it becomes just a broader, what is the what is the biosphere of DCPS, where population growth, and how can we accommodate it? I think the building of the school is getting near to being packed at the gills.
And I believe that DGS and DCPS are proposing other spaces for pre-K classes to move, not this coming year, but the year after. And so that'll free up additional classrooms. Where those new classes will be is still, under discussion and, not really in our purview or in our world at the moment. It's being discussed on high, as I say. But there is talk amongst DGS and DCPS. So hopefully that will help in the future as well.
Well, not in boundary at the moment.
I'm not aware of what their specific plans are right now.
Well, we've been talking to the chancellor about it, and so far there's no in-boundary option. So that's going to resurrect the same sort of issue that we saw around the Military Road School. Now, I had one question about enrollment numbers, which is this, that when we were talking Military Road and moving the pre-K, one of the rationales for moving was that if we didn't move, then we were going to have to lose a pre-K 4 class. They were going to have to reduce the number of pre-K 4 classes in order to stay in the building. And so
we went down from we were at 5 at one point. We were down to 4. Now we're down to 3 pre-K classes.
So will you be, if the enrollment numbers stay as they are, will you increase the pre-K 4 cohort?
Not for this, I don't believe for this coming year, no. We're staying at 3 because we also have a lot of special education classrooms, and we need to reorganize those classes. And so we will be staying at 3 classes.
Seems surprising. Marty, did you raise your hand, or are you just fixing your glasses?
Just adjusting my glasses.
Peter had his hand up a minute ago. No? Okay.
I think it's an ongoing question. So you can see from the projected budget and from grade on grade that the pre-K numbers projected for next year will be 3, but Commissioner Zeldin, we'd be interested in continuing discussions with what you're hearing from the chancellor and others about looking for in and out of boundary space to relieve this pressure overall and continue to support what the community values, which is, pre-K for all and pre-K in the Lafayette community. So it can be a continuum for families from soup to nuts. So
Right.
really look forward to continuing that discussion.
Yeah, as do we, because, those of us who have been teachers or children of teachers really strongly believe in pre-K 3 and 4. And so if there's space in the building and we're not expanding to bring in a 4th pre-K 4 class, I find that disappointing, but I'm sure there are a lot of complex issues that surround that. Because I know it's great.
There's no space for a 4th classroom.
There was, and now your numbers are lower. So I'm not sure why there isn't, but.
Our numbers. No, I don't think that's correct. We don't have the space now. The other grade levels have increased as the cohorts have moved up. So there used to be, I think, 4 5th grade classes, and now there's 5 5th grade classes. So there used to be, there were 6 kindergartens, and now there's 7 kindergartens. So it switches, the cohort population changes each year and changes the amount of classrooms that are needed.
I think it might be helpful. As you were speaking before on the property line issue, I think basically schematics of the school can also be helpful to see those open spaces that have been now turned into classrooms and special ed rooms that have moved from one space in the building to another. And the space that was built out for the 4th grade in the basement that used to be the music area. I think that's a good note to self for LSAT members. If we are invited back in the fall, that we could maybe go through those schematics to demonstrate where there may or may not be closet space or others to squeeze kids, in response to your question, Commissioner Zeldin.
Right. The reason I raise it only is back then we were at 9 something or other, and we said at that number we can't sustain 4, and so we've got to get rid of it. And now we're 60-ish kids down from that. And I thought, well, that's good. Then we can add back that which was taken away. So it'd be helpful for me to see why that math doesn't work out.
Michael,
Yeah.
Carrie Brokart has raised her hand. You want to recognize her and make her a panelist so she can perhaps answer that question?
Sure. I don't know how to do that, but if Connie
I can do it, or Connie can do it. One of us.
Yeah, I could do that.
Okay, thank you, Connie.
Yep. I was just waiting for you to say something, Randy. Okay, I think Carrie is on.
Hi, everybody. This is Carrie Brokart. I'm the principal. I cannot turn on my video. I'm in a parking lot waiting for volleyball practice to be over, so I apologize for that. Commissioner Zeldin, and I'm happy to send these to you. I had done several PowerPoints for the community. I guess it would have been December of 21 that shows the cohort progression that Ms. Pearl was trying to reference. I guess the thing to remember is that in a regular school, 60 kids is, a significant percentage of the population, right? And so it makes different numbers of classrooms. 60 kids across 6 grade levels for us is less than 10 kids per grade level, which is also then less than 1 or 2 more children in a classroom. So 60 kids does not swing our overall number of classrooms, I guess, when we came from 935 down to 865. What it did was it allowed our classes to be at 20 or 21 as opposed to 23 or 24. Next year, as we start to climb back up again, I think, one of the things I shared with LSAT is we came out of the pandemic and moved back into the building. There's always a lot of pressure to meet enrollment numbers, right? For a lot of really great reasons. We did not meet our enrollment numbers, and that was a pretty active choice on my part, right? To make sure that class sizes stayed relatively small so that we could serve the needs of our kids who had been out of the building for 18 months. That pressure continues to meet enrollment numbers. I think, again, that's right for lots of reasons. But as Andrea was saying, is the exiting cohort is smaller than the incoming cohort and has been true for the last 3 years. The only reason we were able to keep the 3rd pre-K this year is because we lost a special education classroom, not by our choice, but because the district is realigning their special education feeder patterns. So for example, all of the communication rooms or autism rooms are all moving to one location so that a student can start in pre-K there and finish their 5th grade experience and still have that service level. So because we lost one of our special education rooms due to the district reorganization, we were able to keep the 3rd pre-K room because we are adding in 6th grade. Oh, not 6th grade. We don't do 6th grade. We are adding to the 6th 1st grade section to do 7. So again, I'm happy to do the rundown of numbers. I recognize your point about the visual aids. It's sort of hard to track, but and Kirsten or Andrea, I'm sure it's in the LSAT notes. Oh no, you guys, that wasn't your LSAT. I'm fine. I can find it and I'm happy to share it with you so you can see the cohorts that track is we are not less. We are actually continuing to grow in numbers of classes. We have 47 classrooms in the building right now. So the great news for us this year is we were able to keep the 3rd pre-K, which was a huge win because quite frankly, we very easily could have not had space. So anyway, just wanted to add in sort of I don't know, the 30,000 foot view of that math. So hopefully that was helpful.
Thank you. Thank you, Carrie. Connie, I think Kirsten is asking about
Yeah,
Ellen?
Dr. Brocard, I think I have that slide on my computer. I don't know if it's helpful, Connie, just for me to flash it up there, just to give a
Yes.
visual of what Dr. Brocard was just describing. It's the 2020, 21, and 22 numbers that
Yes.
show 942 down to 863.
So Randy, you have to make
I did it.
Kirsten a okay,
I
great.
did
Once
that.
she's a co-host, she can do that.
You can do it now, Kirsten.
So can you see that slide? So that's basically the
Yeah.
the depiction that Carrie was
think I'm
talking
on
about,
mute.
Dr. Brocard. So between the 19 and 20, where you can see that was a four classrooms of PK4, then the change to 21, 22, which was 3 PK4s. And then this 7 and 6 and 4th and 5th is a place where, because of the budget constraints, those will go down to 6 and 5 respectively for 2022, 2023, because of that smaller number. Dr. Brocard, I don't know if you can see on your phone from the parking lot, but that's one of the slides you had presented earlier.
Yep, actually 5th grade will stay at 6 because the 4th graders now have 7 classrooms.
Oh, yeah.
We, as an LSAT, made a decision to sort of reduce that down to 6, which squeezes their class size some and accounts for some natural attrition. Our primary loss, we have about, like right now, we've lost 6 kids to Washington Latin or basis. Those are the 2 places that we mostly lose our 4th graders going into 5th grade. So we've lost 6 of them, which is about on par for normal. Remember, there's 130 4th graders, so 6 of them is not a terrible, I mean, we will miss those 6, don't get me wrong. But so we will go from 7 4th grade classrooms down to 6. So 5th grade will stay at 6. We decided to keep 1st grade at 7 sections to make sure that they have the right class size to learn to read. And then 3rd grade was also the other grade level that will be at 7 sections to be sure that that cohort is also adequately supported in that transition from 2nd to 3rd, which is a pretty big academic and social transition, if I remember our conversations, Kirsten.
Great.
So, and what we can do is provide this, as well as, like I was saying, just like the property line, I think the schematics of where the classrooms are may be helpful for you all to see.
Yeah, very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah,
Do
we
any
could
other-
upload it.
Do
if we
any
have
of the
it.
commissioners have questions? Are we taking,
Yeah,
you do, Connie?
Yeah, I was just going to ask. I'm glad that Principal Burkhart mentioned that. Just the lower numbers, are they because students are going to private school in the different grades, or are you seeing certain grades like the 4 to 5? Yeah.
So coming out of COVID in the I mean, we were at a like peak, I guess what school was that? 1920. We on average grew between 30 and 50 kids a year. That was our trend. So that was not uncommon for us. I will tell you, there's no other school in the district who has that level of growth. We have like, it's really quite anomalous and really a true testament to our staff and our school community that we are such a desired place. When everybody pivoted out in 20 across the city in 20 and into 21, I don't remember the exact number, so I don't want to misquote it, but DCPS lost a huge amount of enrollment across the city. A lot of theories, I don't know where the children went. People moved, right? Like life priorities switched. People had to move closer to families for childcare. People moved closer to families because we also have a pretty significant international population, and families who might have joined us for State Department assignments, embassy assignments, any international work, all of that was on hold. So families who typically join us were not approved to enter the country, right? So we took a couple of sort of stops in a couple of places. The sort of cool thing that's happening right now is our international families are back enrolling right now for next school year. I have 6 or 7, with 2 or 3 kids apiece who are headed our way. families that had moved to houses in other states. I have 2 or 3 families who are now back, right, to their house in DC. We actually have picked up quite a few families from the Hill, where families were like, we need more space, when we were all home together for so long. So we've had several families pick up in the neighborhood from the Hill. So that's been a cool little migration. We are not losing any more or less kids to private school than we normally do. Every year we have a handful of people in different grade levels. I was telling LSAT 2 years ago, we had like the worst or the best luck in the lottery. I'm not sure what it was, but I had 4 sets of twins in 4th grade get into charter schools. So every time one of the siblings got in, it automatically pulled the other sibling, right, for sibling preference. So it was like 8 kids went instead of 4, right? So again, I'm not sure if we were the luckiest or the most unlucky, and it looks like that's on par right now too, right? So we track all of that. We track where all of our returning students are going. And just like normal, we have people who move to different states, people whose families get different jobs, places. I have my master spreadsheet running. So it looks very typical right now.
I do think
Yeah.
between 1920 and 2021 and now, just from a parent perspective and those voices from the community, there was a sense that some private or parochial schools were attractive for those years when they had gone back on campus faster than DCPS was allowing. So there was that piece running as well, which is no longer a comparative factor based on DCPS and or other on-campus policy. So
yeah,
another
great.
factor from the pandemic that was
Michael?
running through.
Michael, we still have a lot left to do.
And we
tonight.
gotta get off.
We need to-
Give us
yeah.
the hook.
Right, that's it.
Okay.
We
Thank
hope to
you
be
very
back.
much.
Thank you.
Thank
We really
you.
appreciate all of
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Connie, you'll take care of that. Okay. I'm going to suggest, because I know I've seen Christian's presentation. It's going to be lengthy, I think. I would suggest that we do Brianne Dornbush now rather than waiting until after we go through the DDOT presentation. Is that okay with everyone? I think it will be short. John? You're muted.
John, you're on mute.
Did you want to say something, John?
I do see someone, a constituent of mine who I alerted to the transportation safety issue.
It'll only take about 10 minutes. And I just,
Okay.
I don't think we should.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think we should move on with Brianne.
Okay, that'll be brief. Okay.
I can move her up.
I got it.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, Brianne? Are you there? Yes, you
I'm
are.
here. Good
Okay.
evening.
Okay.
And yes, I will make it. I'll make it really quick. I can talk fast.
That would be great. Thank you.
Absolutely. So good evening, everyone. I'm Brianne Dornbush. I'm Executive Director of District Bridges. We manage the Chevy Chase Main Street program. And so I wanted to give you guys a few updates and some opportunities to get involved and engaged with our work up in Chevy Chase. So we are currently recruiting a new Chevy Chase Main Street manager. I have several links that I will put into the chat after I run through everything so that you guys can link to all of those things. We have the job description. We're actually hiring for 3 different roles at District Bridges. So if you guys have any candidates who you think would be a great fit, or if you yourselves are interested in the role, please apply. We are looking for great candidates. And there's more information about that on our website, and I'll include that link. But we are not slowing down, even though we don't have a dedicated manager right now. I am managing directly the program on all of the different moving parts in terms of keeping our neighborhood strategy council rolling, getting our committees up and started. and some of the programming, the public programming that we'll be doing this summer for folks to get involved. But for businesses, we have hired Dr. Gladys Kamau. She has been in the DC small business ecosystem for many years and we are very fortunate to have her supporting us. So any businesses that are on the line tonight, if you haven't, you should have already gotten information about Gladys. She's been coming around, so if you haven't met her yet, you will meet her soon, but she can help you with any technical assistance needs. The robust retail grants from DSLBD are out right now. And let me tell you, they are very easy applications, like probably one of the easiest applications you'll ever do. So don't miss that opportunity. Gladys and myself are both more than happy to help any business who's interested in applying for those to apply. So I'll also drop Gladys's contact information into the chat and her email address as well. We also have, for the community, we have a series of events that's going to be starting. We're doing a summer series that will start on the second Friday in July, but moving forward, they will be on the first Fridays. And we're probably going to do those through November. And they will be incorporating business specials, the arts, music. We're going to be utilizing some of the parking lots in the neighborhood. So we'll be having a lot more information about those events coming soon. And so 2 ways for community members to get involved. We are looking for volunteers. Events require volunteers, but we also have 2 committees that are launching that we would love to have residents and community members just get engaged with. So we have our events committee and our beautification committee. And so if you are interested in either of those committees, you don't have to be on the Neighborhood Strategy Council. You don't have to have any event planning experience or any of that kind of stuff. If you'd like to get more involved, you can shoot me an email at ccms@districtbridges.org, and I'll include that information as well. We also have that. I'll also include a link for volunteers to get signed up so that you can get notifications about events that we're having. If you're not ready to make a longer term commitment on a committee, we'll have lots of one-off opportunities. A lot of the volunteer opportunities will be great for kids and families as well. So we've got a lot coming out. And so I'll be providing that information. We'd love to get more engaged with residents in the community. And I think that covers all of the things that I have.
Thanks, Brianne. Is the what's the closing, the due date for the application for the grants? I think it's coming up pretty soon, isn't it?
For the robust retail, I believe it is June 6th, but let me double check that.
Okay.
And I'll also include that in the link
Okay.
that I send.
Peter?
Yeah, I don't want to extend this, but I want to, as you know, Brianne, the small area plan assigns to Chevy Chase Main Street a really substantial job. And this is a job that's very important to us. And I just want to, just for the sake of commissioners having a sort of order of magnitude sense of what can be done and what can't. How long has Chevy Chase Main Street been up and running?
So so January 2020 was when we finally got our funds after all of the drama from last year.
And in that time, how much in total in grants to businesses along the Upper Connecticut Avenue?
So I believe this is off the top of my head. I believe it was 64,000.
And I noticed that when you were just speaking, you said getting committees up and running. If you've been around since January of 2020, why are we just getting committees up and running?
Yeah, so our Neighborhood Strategy Council has been started from the very, very beginning. And that's really the first core group that we work with, because sometimes as you're getting a group of volunteers together, you don't really know what the priorities of the community are and what the priorities of the Main Street are. And so two of the things that really emerged over the last year were the businesses want events that bring traffic to the neighborhood. And there's a big push around beautification. So we have a tree box beautification initiative. We're working closely with Friends of Chevy Chase Circle around their beautification efforts. And so trying to get some of those pieces up and running, we had to kind of set those priorities first before we could really reach out to the broader community and say, here are the tangible things that we can do in a committee and ways to plug people in.
How many businesses sit on your strategy council?
I don't have that number off the top of my head. Typically, the way that we do the strategy council is we try to have a third, and a third. So a third of members representing community organizations, a third representing residents, and a third representing businesses.
Okay.
The business ones are often hard because their calendars are challenging. So one of the things that we're doing, we're also starting an economic development committee, but that is primarily for businesses to make sure that their voices are heard on the time and schedule that works best for them.
Well, look, let me not go on here, although I think I could. I just want my fellow commissioners to notice that the issue of helping neighborhood serving businesses is one that all of us have said is important. And I'm given what may be the order of magnitude changes that are going to happen in our commercial corridor. I think we can only expect so much of Main Street, at least as it's currently constituted. So I just, when we have further discussions about this, I think we want to take that into account, and I'll recede at that point.
Connie?
Sorry, go ahead, Randy.
No, go ahead, Brianne.
I actually really appreciate that, Peter, because I think one of the things that often happens is, oh, Main Street can do that. We become kind of a catch-all. And sometimes, like we have a lot of community groups that come to us and say, how can you help with this? And where that small business support really comes in, that is the priority of Main Street. And so when we're trying to, build programming in a community, like engaging the community in supporting the small businesses is extremely important, but the priorities of the businesses really have to be front and center in the Main Street strategy. So I'm very, very happy to have more conversations about that, and talking with you guys as how realistic are these plans, and how can we make sure that the expectations are right sized, so that we don't want to let people down if they're expecting that Main Street can or will do something that really is outside of our mission or outside of our ability and control. So I actually very much appreciate that.
Connie?
I just want to say that I've been disappointed in the slowness of Chevy Chase Main Street over the year and a half that I've seen after its launch. There were lots of things I thought that could have been done, like for instance, just even a pamphlet of all the businesses that are along Connecticut Avenue corridor, which I had asked about and was told that it would have been done by last year, that it was at that there was a contractor, there's the printers, but there's really a lack of transparency. And even though there's a neighborhood strategy council, I never saw minutes. I mean, there's not a lot of reporting out of what's happening. And the emails were, to me, an aggregate, not specific to our Main Street. And so I really hope that the next manager, this job description that's out there, you're going to recruit someone who can really do this job, which as Peter has said, Commissioner Gosselin has said, it's a big lift, but it is not beyond, I believe, the mission of Chevy Chase Main Street. I think that there's got to be more attention paid and a faster delivery of some of these things, and not just the grants, which, it was very nice. 64,000 is not nothing, but there were a lot of other things that could have been done. And so I don't know how we can work more closely with you But there are things that I think we need to have almost like another meeting where we can give you some ideas, things that we'd like to see, and then perhaps a quarterly update or some way where on the website minutes are shared and we know what's happening and who sits on these, who's a member of the council, how many meetings do you have, and what's really going on and moving forward, because CCMS is a major player for us to have a revitalization of that corridor. And I really want to see that work. So I'm here to help. And I'm here, this is constructive criticism. You know, I really would like to see a manager that has all the requisite skills and then the ability to implement.
Absolutely. Can I just ask a couple clarifying questions? Have you guys, as the NS or as the ANC, been receiving the monthly ANC reports?
What ANC reports? I don't believe so. I mean, I've gotten emails, as I've said, they're general. They are like, they're just like what you would send across all Main Street recipients of emails. They're not specific to ours.
Okay.
And I'd like to see much more specificity, like just even like, did you know, like factual things. Did you know that the diner has been empty for these many months and this is what's happening? I mean, I feel like it's got to be specific, and I haven't seen that. And I think that's a real disappointment for me.
Absolutely. And we have instituted across all of our main streets ANC reports that should be going out on a monthly basis to give you guys from your ANC positions more detailed information about what the Main Street is doing. Also on our website, and this is one thing that we're working on, creating more clear how it can be navigated. All of our annual reports, which have specific Chevy Chase data and all of that good stuff, who's on the NSC, how many technical assistance hours, how many businesses served, all of that data is present, but if you have to dig for it and you don't know it's there, that's not helpful. So knowing that can help us in making that more transparent and more available. So let me go back to my team and make sure that we're getting those reports out to you guys, because transparency is very important to us. We can't have you guys involved if you don't know what's going on. And so I take that very seriously. So thank you for bringing that to me. And I would love to schedule another meeting to talk about some of the ways that we can work more collaboratively together and get some stuff done.
Randy, can I suggest that we, Brianne, I suggest to you too, that we have another more, we don't want to go on for hours here. And we haven't been here, Kristen has a long presentation. But I think that this is an issue. I join Connie in saying I'm disappointed, and we need to get this organization, see if there are ways we can help to get this organization back on track. And I think it's worth taking up at a further meeting. So let's see if we can schedule something, and I'd be happy to reach out to Brianne or you or.
Sure. Sure, that's an appropriate thing to do. And Brianne, there are a couple of requests in the chat and in the Q&A for, you're going to post these things that you've just been talking about. I assume you're going to do that tonight before you leave.
I'll do that right now.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Brianne, and we will have you back.
Great.
And the new manager once the manager is chosen. So
absolutely,
we're looking forward to that.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right. Now for the presentation we've all been waiting for from Christian. Connie, you're going to make him a panelist.
While we're waiting for that, let me just say to the people who are in attendance and for those who will listen to this in the future, that what we've asked Christian to do is to go through the process by which traffic safety inspections are undertaken, how people work with the 311 system, what the notification requirements are of DDOT once a decision has been made in respect of a 311 request or on their own initiative, so people have a better sense of what's going on, because there's been some confusion in the community around this. So Christian, thank you very much for your patiently waiting for your turn. And hopefully you can go through it with certain haste, but not so quickly that people won't follow it. And you'll put your slide deck, we posted your slide deck already on our webpage, right, Connie? And we'll
We
put
did,
it.
it's uploaded in the meeting information page, so.
Right, okay. All right, Christian, it's all yours.
Thanks, Commissioner.
You can share your screen.
Oh, yes, right. Let me do that real quick. Okay. Is it up?
Yep, we can see it. It's just Zoom.
Okay, great. Thanks, Commissioner Zeldin. It's good evening, ANC 3G. I know it's been a while. Good to see some familiar faces. I'll kind of brush through some of the intro pieces because I know many of you have seen this already, but just as Commissioner Zeldin said, I want to make sure that I want to reiterate some of the things I mentioned the last time I was here, and to provide some extra clarity, which I know is the reason why I was invited back. So I'll kind of go through what the TSI process is, kind of compare it with our old process, and like Commissioner Zeldin said, do that step-by-step guideline. I'll also do a review of the dashboard, which is still up and actively running, but we're also making some small improvements as we go down the line, which I know many of you have been involved in some of those meetings. And then kind of FAQs. And then I'll touch a little bit on the ANC resolution submission process, but it's a little bit outside this scope, but wanted to add it anyway. So for those who are not familiar, TSI stands for Traffic Safety Investigation.
Christian, have you got the right screen
We're
share?
looking at a Zoom advertisement.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't see my screen at all?
We see somebody's screen, but it's not. It's not your presentation.
Hold on, I'm sorry about that. Okay, do you see it up now? It should be a slide deck.
No, you sort of mashed the advertisement. It's sort of squished to one side of the screen, but it doesn't.
Here, let me see if I can, let me unshare and then reshare. I think it was just on the wrong screen. Let's try that.
I believe. Oh,
is this better? Can you see
it's
it
now back on. Sorry,
have two tapes.
Sorry, Peter.
The danger of giving someone else.
I went to try to press Q&A and then I pressed the
Can
stop
you see
button.
my slides now?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, we can.
Okay. All right.
So
I'll
guys.
start from. Okay. Well, this is what my intro with my content.
Okay. All right.
So traffic safety investigations, for those who are not aware, it's a tool that residents can use through 311 to inform us as DDOT of what concerns lie in your neighborhoods. These are, of course, for a variety of different traffic calming interventions, such as speed humps, bulb outs, curb extensions, even pylons or other kinds of curb hardening tools that we can use to slow down traffic. And so it goes to our engineering team and they use this as a mechanism to evaluate and assess traffic issues and then make those determinations to see when and where they're warranted. So the old process was the 6-step process that you see on my screen. It was also included a traffic safety questionnaire, which you see on the left. That many people probably were very familiar with. It used to be like a separate 311 questionnaire that you would fill in your information and tell us, what concerns there were. It was very repetitive, and leadership felt the need that this was kind of a hindrance to a lot of the pieces of the puzzle. So as you can see highlighted in red, that's step 2, which was the questionnaire, as well as the ANC written correspondence to initiate this request has been removed. So now the new process is really just 5 steps, which many of that has stayed the same, but I'll go and kind of do one by one so everyone is familiar I also just want to reiterate that we've done this process not only as a way to engage residents further, it also enhanced transparency, but it's also an initiative that Mayor Bowser has for us to really reach our goal of Vision Zero, work at these TSIs very expeditiously, and really track and pinpoint some of these hard traffic safety assessments that would usually take quite a while to get through the pipeline with all the paperwork and the back and forth, and we've really tried to truncate it as much as we can to deliver effective results to district residents. So the new TSI process that you can see here, I've also have the new one pager to my left of the screen. I can also send that to you guys individually. I know many of you may have it, but it really kind of gives this kind of step-by-step guideline as to how to submit a TSI, what residents can do. This was made effective late last year, but we're really trying to revamp and still make some changes as we go along. So the first step is residents can contact, of course, through DDOT through 311. That's either through the desktop version or on a laptop or at the app. You can also call in and phone in, which you'll be directed to our customer service representatives that can walk residents through the process as well. I've also had residents who go out on Twitter and tweet at 311, which is not my preferred method because it's just not very trackable, but it is another way if you're very savvy with Twitter and social media to get the word out as well. We do want to emphasize for residents that the information provided within this section should be focused on what the safety challenges are and not necessarily providing answers to us as to what the solution should be. So instead of saying there's a conflict at 3300 block of Tennyson, we need a speed hump, it would be better for residents to say that there are safety issues, speeding is present, pedestrians are at risk, and it gives our engineers the ability to use their expertise and their tools that they have in their toolkit to best address some of those issues. So that's pretty much what the first step is for that. This is what residents see through 311 when you go through and you click that traffic safety investigation tab. And it outlines, those examples that I said. You can also see the different areas where people can fill in, describing your concerns, what time of day it happened, where exactly did the problem lie, etc. And residents can also submit photos on the top left. Go off the bottom, it says attach photos, which we really encourage residents to use as well. So under the step 2, this is where DDOT will evaluate a safety issue to determine whether a certain mitigation is warranted. Step 3 is where the DDOT will communicate our findings to the residents. So that's either as a comment through 311, which residents who submit that request will get that via email, or they can go to our dashboard, which I'll talk a little bit later, and see where that goes into the process in real time. Please be mindful that TSIs still take up to 130 business days to complete the full assessment. That's prior to the recommendation. We've also broken it up a little bit to do a quarter-based system to help us manage expectations and for residents to really understand where things fall into the pipeline. So for example, our quarter system follows the fiscal schedule. So quarter 1 goes from October to December, quarter 2 is January to March, etc. And it follows those 3-month kind of intervals. So residents can expect that if they submit something in March, that they should see the recommendations and results put into place between June and like July-ish timeframe, the early summer, midsummer timeframe. If recommendations change the existing conditions of the street, so whether it's for one-way parking or if it's to add a traffic signal or an all-way stop or something that changes the integrity of the physical road, that is when we'll issue an NOI or a notice of intent. This is our legally bound method of informing residents that there is a public comment period in place. I've also heard from some residents and some ANC commissioners as well that they were under the impression that DDOT would actually be in charge of going out and distributing by hand NOIs, which I wanted to make that clear if some residents were confused about that. So NOIs get sent over to the commissioner chair and the SMD commissioner of that particular location. It is then the job of the ANC and residents, and of course the mayor's office does the same, to go out and distribute those to the residents, whether that's via email, through a listserv. I know some commissioners who go out and hand print those and deliver them to their certain residencies. But I know that there has been some miscommunication on, some residents have seen NOI, some others haven't. So I wanted to make that clear moving forward with that. So step 5, DDOT will install the safety mitigations deemed necessary, as I mentioned, using that quarter system, January to March timeframe. It's also important to note that some installations will be delayed just naturally, some based on weather, some based on materials or supply chain issues. For example, we can only really do stripings and markings during a certain time of the year when the temperature of the asphalt is above a certain level for the markings to actually stick. So for those examples, we can't do that in the rain, we can't do that much in the winter months, but providing that context to residents is useful for us, because then, at least they can anticipate when those particular changes can be made. This is the interface of the dashboard. As I said, it's still a work in progress. We've made some changes, but we intend to, advance and keep modifying the system as we move forward. Residents can access the TSI dashboard by going to tsi.ddot.dc.gov. Also, if you go to type in TSI in Google, it's usually the first thing that shows up. But you can see here, there's 4 tabs on the top that show the date it's initiated, the ward, the ANC, the SMD, and the service request number. Residents can use all those tools to search and locate for what TSIs are in the system, and you can use that as a way to measure what changes we're doing as DOT to make those safety investments. You can also see on the top that there is 4 additional tabs that I'll go one by one to discuss. So the first one is pending DDOT review. Residents can go and click this tab and they'll see these fuchsia colored circles, and those are individual locations that you can see on the left-hand side of the screen that kind of describe what the service request number is, the location of that request, and the date it was initiated. Do want to know that this is also something that our performance management team is really looking to see what they can further bolster with this. They want to add a list down for each individual one with icons about which particular traffic safety request is being put in, whether it's a speed hump, whether it's a curb extension. So those are in the process to being modified, which would just create more transparency for residents. The second tab is pending data collection. So these purple circles show where requests have made it past the review stage and they're implemented during the data collection stage. This is typical for speed humps. For most of the board, I do want to make a caveat that there are times where we would install speed humps that won't require data collection if there is no community pushback, and I can touch on that a little later, or kind of further that in the Q&A. But overall, that's a tool that residents can see for what is in the queue for that, which of course vary dependent on the type of request. If it's an ATE camera for automated traffic enforcement, that's going to require a certain amount of data collection. If it's for speed humps, speed levels and volume are required, etc. Third tab is pending installation. So this is one where requests are in the queue to be put on the ground by our contractors or by our own team. And it's pretty self-explanatory. It's just waiting to be constructed. And then finally, the last tab is closed service requests. There's also future conversations in our team to make this more user-friendly by adding requests that are previously closed as well, to make sure that residents can kind of go back to us and be like, hey, I got this request that was closed out, but nothing happened. They can come to this dashboard and see where that also lies. So those are just little future nuggets of information to be on the lookout for as we continue to make this better and more comprehensible. So So these are just a list of some FAQs I've gotten the past several months since we've initiated this. I'm sure you've had a lot more yourselves as commissioners. Many, of course, include, what's the main difference between a TSA and a TSI, and that's, without their questionnaire and the ANC endorsement. Others are a little bit more integrative, like clarifying the role of ANCs. I know this has been really a heated debate, depending on some ANCs about what involvement is necessary. Our leadership and our team at DDOT has been really focused on efficiency and effectiveness. And so we want to make sure what we're doing is following the data, is following our criteria, but also making sure that we can get these installations on the ground in place as fast as we can and as effective as we can, because we've had a strong history, unfortunately, of not having a lot of bandwidth of putting these in as fast as we want to. And so per our guidance, we want to make sure that we're upholding the mayor's standards, we're upholding our standards, and to make sure that in order to provide an efficient process that we have to eliminate some areas of concern. But we're also always looking forward for feedback on how we can better this process. Common questions, of course, I've also mentioned, like why my TSI was closed without recommendations for safety improvements. Well, I don't see work going underway. What's the timeline? That's when the quarter system is useful now for residents to understand. Another one is my TSI was closed, but there was no recommended changes and DDOT didn't take action. So in this case, it could be, a variety of things. It could be based on the data. There was no, the trends did not warrant a change. And so we're looking at a different alternative. It could be the case where there's a larger capital improvement project in the area that will encompass that particular request. And so that will be kind of morphed into the larger project, which means a TSI would not necessarily be necessary. And other things like that can factor in as to a reason why some of them will be closed. And finally, I just wanted to touch a little bit on the ANC resolution process. We are also committed to making sure we are being as effective and responsive to ANCs as much as we can. So we have an ANC portal, which is not just for DDOT or TSI related. This is for anything across district government regarding any resolutions. You can go to this link and put your documentations in there. Within 10 business days, you'll get an acknowledgement letter from our division and then a response within about 60 days of time of when submitting that. So it keeps us on check. It keeps you guys a little bit aware and abreast of where we're at with some of these timelines. And you can always reach out to me directly if those, if you realize there's some backlog that takes place. I hope that was fast and efficient. I hope it wasn't talking too fast, but for those who don't have my contact, it's here on the screen. I'll also put it in the chat, after the Q&A, but I'm open to any questions in this lovely spring evening. Thank you, everyone.
John?
Yes, I have a constituent, Josh Dunning, who is here. He submitted an application. For some reason, there was no response. He called again and submitted a second application, I believe. I don't know, Connie, if you can get Josh to ask his question and clarify. Maybe it got lost between the shift from one system to another. So if you could give this constituent a minute, I'd appreciate it.
I've
Christian,
elevated him to panelist.
Christian, could you take down your shared screen, please?
Oh, yes, I can.
Yes, hi, John. And hi, team. Apparently I am upside down, which is fascinating and a first time for me. So I'm not in Australia. Anyway, I don't know why this, let me see if I can turn that upside down. There you go. Anyway, thanks, Christian, I'll just hold it upside down, oddly. Thanks, Christian, for your presentation. It sounds like a lot of the changes that are going to affect will be great and great transparency. I had opened a ticket last spring and turns out it was closed with saying they couldn't contact me for further information, which was interesting, but I've had it reopened and looking forward to having that have resolution just concerning with speeding on our street at particular times during the day. So looking forward to having that hearing on that in the next 100 or so days.
Awesome. Yeah, and thanks, Josh, for doing that. If you want to also, we can talk offline, but you can also send me that particular SR number, and I'll track that for you to see where we are at with that process, so it doesn't get lost in the queue.
Great, much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael, do you want to do you want to say out loud some of the questions that are in the Q&A for Christian? Or do you want me to?
Well, there are two that I see.
Mm-hmm.
Should say, which part of DDOT evaluates the alleged safety issue, and what steps are required before DDOT makes a safety determination?
Yeah, so great question. So the first step is once requests are submitted in 311, they go directly to our traffic engineering and safety division, which is within our headquarters. You know, they have our safety engineers who are experts across the ward that do their assessment. Prior to that, you know, when it comes to, like, say for a speed hump request for a local road, they take into account the current speed limit. They also look at the grade of the road. There's a variety of different engineering standards that need to go into that. You know, it has to be a certain amount of feet away from an alley, from a driveway, from an intersection. And so it has to meet some of those core engineering components to determine whether one would be feasible. Because there have to be a certain width and a certain space for those humps to be placed. So that's why you see some locations with one speed hump, some locations have multiple speed humps. It's just dependent on the integrity and the geometry of the road that will determine, you know, whether we can put one in, and two, how many, and will they be effective.
Okay. And there's a third question in here, which is, because there is no requirement that the requesting resident live at the address submitting the request, how do we ensure that those directly impacted residents know that something has been requested? So I guess the question is, if a mom or dad walks their kid to Lafayette every day and they live on Stuyvesant Street, but they notice that on 33rd Street, cars speed very quickly and it's a danger as they try to walk their kids to school. They can put into 311 a request to slow traffic down on 33rd Street as a general safety matter, correct? That's
Yes, that's true.
allowed. And so the question is, so that hypothetical person puts that into the 311 system, and DDOT makes its evaluation and determines that, yes, indeed, a speed hump is appropriate to slow traffic down as the TSI found. That resident will then be notified that the outcome of their request, correct?
Correct.
Will the ANC chair and or SMD for that area also receive it, or will it just go to, in this case, the citizen?
Yeah, right now that's another avenue that we're trying to really make that it's more integrated. Right now, that request would only go to the requester. This has been an issue for a lot of different areas that at least I've covered, and of course my colleagues as well. We have outside residents or outside neighborhood residents submitting requests for streets that they don't live on. Commissioner Zell, I think you and I were definitely involved in some of those in the past. What I encourage is, while the process doesn't allow for out of resident people to put in requests for other people, I encourage residents to always contact their ANC chair if they're not familiar who their ANC commissioner is or our SMD commissioner is. And so at least we have someone who's within that bounds of the ward that is aware of what's going on. So when they, as in the resident, gets the email about what next steps are going to happen, there's some consistent communication that can take place. I know that's putting a lot of the burden on residents themselves to really keep that up to tabs with that process. And that's one of the reasons why we want to make sure, moving forward, we can probably have a system where an SMD commissioner and a resident are equally notified. I'm not sure of where we are at with that process, but right now, that's something we are actively looking on. But I do appreciate that question because I know that's something that's going to be coming up for a lot of requests.
Christian, is there any policy reason why DDOT would not want to notify the ANC commissioner?
It probably has to do, and I don't want to speak for our leadership, but in terms of effectively streamlining that process. And it's not, it has nothing to do with, you guys as your ANC, 3G is very standardized, very efficient. You guys do a great job. But there have been instances where other ANCs, even outside of Ward 3, really start to have these battles with residents, and it can be months and months and times, and we never really get to any resolve. And so while that of course happens to some ANCs and not all, it wasn't a battle where we had to pick and choose. And so we just made it standardized across the board that residents can initiate the process, and then it goes directly to us, and we'll figure that out with what we have in place.
Because I know that we've been encouraged by DDOT, we commissioners, to have individuals enter the 311 system on their own behalf. And we've talked about the problem that creates, which we've just talked about, which is the commissioner doesn't necessarily then know of the outcome. Of course, if the commissioner knows about the outcome, the commissioners are also, as we discussed in the previous meeting, hamstrung by the fact that we don't have a mailing list for our constituents. The city has not given us one, and we try to notify through the listserv, but not everybody is on the listserv. And so this notification issue is still something that I think is a work in progress, but needs some additional thought so that as wide a cohort of people who are affected directly or indirectly can be made aware of things that are in their environment.
John?
Just one more question. Christian, thanks for the presentation. Is there any way DDOT could prioritize response times by degree of challenge? That is, someone sends you a notice for, a signage change, that's a 30-day response, but a speed bump is maybe a 90-day response or something like that?
Yeah, there are different time frames for certain requests. Speed humps are, for the entire process to be assessed, is about 130 days. And it really depends. If it's a missing sign that was existing on a pole, that could be done in a matter of, I think it's within 60 days and the max within a month. But if it's a request for a new sign that involves either diverting traffic or has a safety component to it, it must go through our traffic safety investigation process. Because there are certain regulations and standards on where signs can be placed and how, and the height of where they can be. And so because we have to meet those regulations which are federal requirements under the MUTCD, which is the federal highway standards that we use, that's the reason why there's a lot of discrepancy when it comes to different requests. But if there's been a request that's been in and it's exceeded its time frame, feel more than happy to reach out to me, and I can get that resolved to the best of my abilities.
Okay.
You're muted, Michael.
I don't see any other questions, Randy.
I've got a question.
Okay.
Christian, I've had several TSI requests, and they never seem to be resolved. And one that I've got two in particular. One is a request at Nebraska and Military Road, and there I did get a response that work was going to be done, but is there any process to notify me then when the work is actually done? Because so far as I can tell, it hasn't been done, and it was going to include some striping and some other things that were going to have to be done. And perhaps that couldn't be done over the winter, because this was back in October when they conducted the investigation. But now it's springtime. We're getting some really hot weather. And is there a process for notifying me when the work is actually going to get done?
Right. If you were the one who submitted that request, the process should be that you would get an email response from one of our engineers, from the person who's made that determination of what that next step would be. And that gets added to that comment section that I get to see in our database. But you, as the resident, would also get some notification for that. Now, I know there's been some tricky situations where some residents receive the notice and some don't. It's one of those issues that might go to like a junk mail or something like that. But the way the process is supposed,
I'm looking at 311, my 311 account right now. And the engineers did the work back in, I believe it was October. October, they closed it. And then they had all these recommendations for all the things that they were going to do at that intersection. And then it says that the work is completed. Well, it's completed from the engineering standpoint, but it's not completed from the physical changes that needed to be made. They determined needed to be made.
Right.
So is there a process for notifying me then when the work is actually completed, not the engineering analysis, but the work is completed?
Correct. Yes. Yeah, you should get a response when the work is complete. I think in this particular case, it's closed because the service request was closed, but that means after that process, it gets issued as a work order from us internally. And that has its own time frame, because if it's for a sign, for example, it goes to our field operations branch and that gets put into their queue. And I get notified of those as well. So
I've got no notice on that. No notice at all from anybody about that. So the process is not working, apparently. Is that on your dashboard too? Would that be where can I find that information if I'm trying to see whether the work has actually been done?
It would be on the final tab with the completed section, but we don't, work orders are internal only for the engineers. So that's information that residents would not see in terms of like the design specifications, the renderings, kind of all that engineering jargon, like the plats and stuff. Those are not seen publicly. I mean, if you're interested, I can share.
No,
some
I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested in is when is the work actually going to get done on the street? There was supposed to be some additional striping. They were going to change some signs. They were going to do a whole bunch of things, physical things.
Right.
When do I get told that work has actually been done? How do I find that out?
Right. Yeah. So I guess I don't really have a clear answer for you on that one, because it should be sent to you as a response through your 301, which you said that did not happen. I also get notified with those if I go into our database. So I guess at the time being, I can provide that to our team to see where's that disconnect happening, because what should happen is the process should follow that quarter system, which in this case, if it was issued back in October, it's already surpassed that quarter base that we're looking at. So this might be a unique situation. So feel free, we can talk offline. I really want to make sure that this one gets addressed, because that's crucial.
All right. There's another instance too, and I've communicated this to you individually, but at 2900 Military Road, I couldn't have been more specific in the 311 request that this related to the intersection at 2900 Military Road, 29th Street and Military Road. And the response that I got back was, we don't know what location you're talking about. We weren't unable to examine this because you didn't specify a location. It was very, very clear. And then it was closed, of course. So it seems that sometimes there's just a rush to try to close these without really doing the work. And that doesn't help the system.
Can I just, before Kristen responds, I've had the same issue, and Kristen and I have spoken about it a lot. The one thing I have found which facilitates it is uploading photos. So you show them a visual of it. And in my experience, that has helped. It shouldn't be necessary, but in my experience,
it shouldn't be necessary at all.
I know, but I'm just saying is that it has helped.
Well, I could upload a photo of anything then, but
I'll let Commissioner Gosselin go, and then I'll see if I can address all the questions.
I just wanted to point out that, Kristen, you're a good-spirited public servant. And so I don't mean this as critical of you, but you've already given us this presentation some months ago. And we went through a host of problems that we had then. And it sounds as if all of the problems still exist. And the notion that an ANC commissioner should put in a specific work order and not be notified when the work was done. The notion that you put in speed humps and you don't tell the people on the affected street, there's some fundamental design problem here. And finally, the notion that your response to each of these things is that we need to go offline to you seems to me to raise a good deal of questions of what the department has created online. If we have to back channel all these things, then maybe you ought to go back to the drawing, DDOT, not you, DDOT ought to go back to the drawing board with their online system.
Connie, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I do. So I don't know if Christian wants to address what Peter said, but I have something that I wanted to say.
Yeah, no, I can briefly kind of touch on what Commissioner Gosselin and Commissioner Speck has said. So, no, I completely understand the frustrations, right? I mean, I think as someone who's out facing like myself and having to work with residents and work with you guys to really make sure that these things are on the board, you know, it's been a challenge as we moved to this new system. But, you know, I think to Commissioner Zeldin's point about photos for Commissioner Speck's point of the conversation is, for that particular one, I think listing a intersection and saying what block it's on is still not specific, only because that there might be what corner of that block in terms of, is it going to right hardening turn? I mean, I don't want to get into the details. I'm just trying to justify as to why that might be the case.
There's no ambiguity, believe me. There's no ambiguity. This is it's a T intersection.
Understood. Okay.
There can be no ambiguity. Somebody just didn't want to deal with it.
Well, Randy, can I just say one thing else about the system, because I've been spending so much time in the system. The way the system works, again, not excusing it, I agree with you, but the way the system works, and Amir and Christian, tell me if this is still correct. If you're at an intersection and you want something that's like on that corner or in the T intersection, if you pick an address that's on that, in that intersection, that also helps the.
Which I did. I did exactly that.
So it may not be that homeowner has requested that, but if you put that address in, it's a sort of like a GPS. It helps DDOT figure out what corner you're talking about.
I think
I
I
think,
did that.
could I?
And just a second, Connie, I did that. And there is a map on my 311 request with the precise intersection.
Okay.
No,
I'm not defending DDOT. I'm just saying for others.
I mean, I don't understand how much more I've got to do.
No, I'm just saying, I'm not challenging Randy. I'm just saying the way the system works, sometimes if you just put in a placeholder address, it facilitates the process.
Well, I did.
So can I?
But the thing is, this just didn't work at all. I mean, they were trying to get out of having to do anything rather than affirmatively trying to do something. Nobody went out there and looked.
I apologize if you had that experience, Commissioner. So this is not how the system is supposed to work. So I want to make sure that we can get some clarity. But I'll let Commissioner Chang chime in. I know she's
okay.
To get something in.
So what I would like to say is that there's just too many of these where things are closed out without a back and forth. And I really do think that if you can take this back, Christian, to your upper management, it would be really helpful, the performance team, which is to say, this is a very simple question. Like, your clock starts to run. If someone puts a TSI request in, the clock is running. It's very frustrating for those of us who are requesting things and seeing it closed out without having at all a chance to specify, to have a phone call, to put it in. So I really think there should be a little bit of that. And then the second thing is there should be an appeals process. There's just been too many. I mean, I've had things close out and I'm like, but nothing's been done. And it's just not clear in the language, like that where DDOT is responding, and then there's nowhere to go. So I think we have to have something inside that system. And I totally get why you changed it. You want to move forward, move faster. But of course you solve one problem and then there's these other problems. So if there's a way to just say that, I think that will be helpful. I mean, the back and forth about like, did you write the right address? I feel like all of those things we could argue to death about it. That's not the point. The point is if there was a question, if there were a question, that question should have been posed to the requester and solved. Like that should have been done, and it isn't. And once it isn't, there should be an appeal, a way for the requester to appeal to keep the time clicking still. Do you see what I'm saying? Instead of starting with 0 again. So that's all I have to say.
So
No, I
Randy,
appreciate all the feedback.
it's 9:40. What do you?
Well,
we have two more questions. We have two more questions, and I think we need
one
to.
is not
we need to.
One is not a question. It's just a comment.
Oh, okay.
Ron.
The last question, what role do residents actually living on the block where the measures are proposed have in the predetermination stage? Why is there no process for providing input and correcting potentially erroneous information?
I think we've really basically covered that.
Right. And then the next one.
Christian. Well, that's Ron's, and I think it's just a comment. It's not a question.
Okay. Okay.
All right, Christian, thank you very much.
No, thank you all. Appreciate you. And
Hey, thank you, Christian.
Thank you for spending the time with us.
Okay, we're now to the commission business.
Yes, finally.
Peter has circulated the minutes and for the April 11th, April 25th, and May 9th meetings. Peter, you want to move?
I've taken edits from Connie and Randy and accepted them all. I move that we approve the minutes for all 3 of these meetings.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? 6-0. Thank you, Peter, for all the hard work that you're doing. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
John, any checks?
Yes. A check to Verizon for $162.26. And Randy, I was checking back. You have put in 4 reimbursement requests, and we've only issued you 2 checks. So we owe you 2 more.
Okay.
Each of them for $222.58. So I'd like to have approval of those 2.
Okay. All those in favor of approving those checks? 6-0. Thank you, John. Anything else on the financial report?
No, nothing right now.
Okay. I did see, just as we were starting our meeting today, the auditor issued her report for all the ANCs, and there's we look this is for the last fiscal year, but we look absolutely fine. They're
good.
Great. Well, compared with all the other ANCs. Okay.
I have one question in sort of the business-ish role. Whatever happened, John, to the administrative assistant role that we're trying to fill to help in the office of the ANC here?
Nothing. We just keep coming up with issues and other issues and other issues, and it keeps falling to the back. So, you know, I think Connie and I have determined that we're at least going to get in touch with places like UDC and AU. I did find out the contact person at UDC with their internships and so forth, so we can start moving in that.
Okay, I may have another candidate besides the one that I submitted or encouraged to submit.
Please do.
That you guys never contacted, but.
Can I also suggest that you might talk to Chuck Elkins? Chuck has been out of the country for a while, but I think he's back now. And he has some very good ideas about getting assistance.
Terrific.
He might be able to help us out. Okay, thanks, Michael. For our June 13th meeting, here are the items that I have currently on the possible agenda. discussion and possible vote on a resolution to support the Enhancing Reproductive Health Protections Amendment Act of 2022. That's the act that's before the council now, and the Women's Protection Act of 2021, which is before the US Congress. Then Connie, you mentioned it earlier in the meeting today, the possible update from DDOT on the Connecticut Avenue. Oh, no, this is different from, I'm sorry, not the same thing, but this DDOT update on the Connecticut Avenue multimodal and safety project study. This is the reversible lane study.
Correct.
That
That's right.
Chaz are on now as advisors. That's a possible thing for that meeting. Then Peter suggested, and I think it would be an appropriate time to talk about it as a discussion and possible vote on the creation of the Standing Committee on Zoning, Design, and Development, which is what we had included in our recommendation to OP about the small area plan. So we can discuss that as well.
Randy, just let me say that I did ask Erkin where OP is on responding to the May 9th resolution, preparing a final SAP and so forth. And he said, we are working towards completing the final SAP for transmittal to the council with hearing transcript and written comments by early June. In tandem with the transmittal, OP will provide a response to ANC's resolution. So by June 13th, we ought to know whether we're getting anything out of them. So
right. Connie?
I just want to share that, I mean, separately, I didn't know that that Peter had sent that email to Erkin. I did send an email to Erkin today saying that I think it might be a good idea to have another community advisory committee meeting for them to give us a heads up on the difference between the draft and the final before they submit this final to council. I haven't heard back yet, but I'd like to know if that is a possibility so that we have some way of assessing. I'll let you guys know what I hear.
All right. We'll all look forward to hearing from OP. Okay, anything else for tonight? Okay, Johnny, you got the chat and everything? You got the chat?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me see, wait, just, I would not, I think we can stop the recording and let me just
Okay.
make sure that I have everything. I have all of the Q&As.